What if everything you were taught about job security is setting you up to fail? Your parents told you to study, work hard, get a good job, and climb the corporate ladder so that you can retire comfortably. Sound familiar? But this is completely wrong. And in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 red flags that it's time to ditch the safety of a 9-to-5 and start taking control, not only to secure your future, but to make more money than you could with traditional employment. Because the advice from your parents worked during their time, but it's no longer the 70s or the 80s anymore. That was back when one paycheck could cover an entire household. But today, everything's getting more expensive and wages just aren't keeping up. And loyalty gets you nowhere. Not that long ago, I was a top producing salesperson, but I was still averaging more or less $3,000 a month. And I know I'm not the only one. Many of my colleagues shared similar experiences despite being good at what they do. I'm sure you can relate. You work hard, you're great at your job, but still are underpaid and undervalued. And yet so many are clinging to jobs that can drop us in just 2 weeks notice. And that can happen anywhere, even at Google, Amazon, or NBC. So how secure is employment really? And companies don't reward loyalty like they used to. So instead of waiting for the recognition that's not coming, let's talk about how to recognize when it's time to leave. Sometimes the only way to move forward is to stop playing it safe. And for me, that moment came when I finally got fed up of working for managers that just didn't understand anything about the business. And I felt stuck in a system that was just holding me back. And I decided to do something about it. And I started working for myself as a sales consultant. And in my first 5 months, I was able to make $194,000. Yes, I was able to get my income up over $50,000 in a month. And I've seen this happen for others too. Over the last year, I've worked with over 80 sales professionals in starting their sales consulting. And many of them are now earning 10, 20, even 30,000 a month or more. So stick with me, because in this video, I'm going to share you the 5 red flags that it's time to quit your job and start betting on yourself. And it's not always about hating your boss or having terrible work. Often the signs are a lot more subtle. But first, let me ask you 3 questions and be honest with yourself, because your answers might reveal more than you think. The first one is, do you feel valued at your work, or does your input go unnoticed? Like it doesn't even matter. The second is, are you actually growing your skills, or are you just getting through the day with no real sense of progress? And the third is, what's keeping you at this job? Is it something meaningful, or is it just a paycheck? If even one of these questions made you uncomfortable, it's time to think about why you're still there and do something about it. So let's start with the first of the 5 red flags, and that is going to be irritation. Because when you're in a job that doesn't give you purpose or recognition or growth, it's not just a waste of your time, it's a waste of your life. And this can look like seeing inefficiency all over the place that you just have no control over, like systems that are broken, or marketing that needs to be fixed, or processes that could be improved that would drastically make your life easier or save you from just doing things that you feel are wasteful. Many sales organizations I've been a part of had processes, or that could be in the scripts or in their pre-call automations, or even just in the day-to-day workflow of the end of days and how I was moving through that just had me waste my time for no good reason other than they just didn't want to build it better, but they didn't want to listen to me about actually fixing it or doing anything better. And this would often lead to bringing this or voicing my concerns to upper management, which, despite it being an honest concern and not trying to make a big deal about it, was just perceived as nagging, or I was just told the classic, yeah, that's good, we'll take care of that later, or that's not a priority, or don't worry about that, just do your job. And the crazy part is oftentimes these companies still had good metrics. They were still profitable, and on paper our data looked good, but behind the scenes it was just a mess. There was so much that could have been better. And there's a really good quote by Jeff Bezos that says, if you're looking at a company and the data says that the company's doing well, but the anecdotes, meaning the ideas and opinions of the employees on the ground floor, say otherwise, listen to the employees, because oftentimes they have a more accurate perspective, and it's usually their gripes and concerns that eventually cause the data to skew later. So what's good for a moment won't be good forever. And if your manager doesn't understand this and is only looking at the numbers to make decisions, or the business owner, they often just don't know what they're doing, and they don't know the nuances or have an appreciation or respect for what actually makes something good or less painful. So if you feel constantly irritated, like your ideas just aren't heard, it's a clear signal that your potential is being wasted. The second red flag, stagnation. Without growth, a job isn't an opportunity, it's a hamster wheel, keeping you stuck in the same place. If there's no challenges in your work and you're just showing up because it's easy, that's a sign that things need to change. For me personally, I've had many moments in my career where I just got good at the thing that I was doing, to the point where I could just shut my brain off, honestly, and just go through the motions throughout the day and get a pretty good outcome or get a pretty good result. But there comes a point where I would just develop such an irritation or frustration with this because I knew I wasn't growing. It's like when you go to the gym for the first time and you're lifting a weight that's heavy. It's only heavy for your first couple weeks, and then your body gets used to it, and then you're not actually growing or developing muscle. And it's usually when I had that awareness or that recognition for myself that something inside of me would feel so unsettled. Something deep within my spirit knew that I just wasn't living to my potential and to my fullest, and that's usually when I would feel the need to want to leave or to grow. And then coming back to the point earlier, I would now begin to have irritations with my work. And a stable paycheck is nice at the end of the day, but there's nothing more stable than having so many skills that you become irreplaceable. Because if you can get good at it, somebody else can get good at it. And if somebody else can get good at it, then you can be replaced and they could maybe do it cheaper. And this happens a lot at tech and corporate companies. Why do you think AI is such a threat to a lot of programmers? Well, why pay a person to do it when I could pay an AI to do it? The same thing that happened during the Industrial Revolution, where there was factory workers who would move things from point A to point B. But why would I pay a person when I could pay a robot? Because they don't need time off, they don't need benefits, and they can work 24/7, 365. And so the same thing happens in just about every industry. So whether you feel the discontent to yourself or not, eventually you will become replaced. But another part to this is if you're just showing up and doing a job, you're not actually creating something for yourself. You're not actually living in your own world. You're living in a world that somebody created for you. That means that I'm living under the helm or the direction or the guidance of somebody else. And so long as that's true, I don't actually have any stability or control or direction over where my career is going. Because the moment that they decide they don't need me or they change the job, then I'm doing what they want me to do, not what I want to do. So are you just showing up to get the money, or are you showing up because you're actually trying to develop skill? And the third red flag to look out for is silent quitting. If the only reason you are staying is for the paycheck, is it really worth it? And silent quitting is the most infamous of the red flags. It's most akin to settling. If you've already checked out of your work and you're showing up out of spite, realize that you're not actually hurting your employer, you're just hurting yourself. Because it comes back to the stagnation and the irritation that we talked about before. Sorry to say, but once again, at work, you are very replaceable. So other than just providing for your life, your job needs to make you grow. Chances are nobody from upper management will call you out if you silently quit. And most of the time, if they do, they wouldn't even care, because you will be the first person who's targeted when layoffs come or when they decide to change your position, because you'll have absolutely nothing to show for the time you spent at this job. See, silently quitting is a lot like settling in marriage or a relationship, where maybe there are standards or things that you once strived for, really desired, but you've just decided that this is good enough and I'll take this for now. Or maybe you had ambitions or goals or places that you wanted to be, but you've decided that the level that you're playing at is okay. I can tolerate this. This is bearable. But the truth is, if you are not growing, you are dying. Businesses are either acquiring customers or losing customers from churn. And it's the same principle for your employment. You are either progressing with a company or about to be cut for someone who will. Because an A player does the work of 2 to 3, sometimes even 5 B to C players. And if you are that B to C player, you are the most targeted. But worse off, who are you to settle? What have you done that entitles you to be able to take your foot off the gas? What makes you so special that you can put in less than everybody else, or that your lack of effort will just be tolerated? See, any real company or any person who strives or is pursuing greatness will have a pure disgust for any contempt or mindset that revolves around the idea of settling. Even for myself, the idea gives me shivers up my spine, because it is those who settle that will be the first to be replaced, because they have no utility and they don't have that fighting spirit to conquest and grow and actually do something with themselves. And if you're showing up to work because you've clocked out and are just collecting that check, realize that everybody knows, and they don't call you out on it because it's easier to not confront you. It's easier to let you go, and inevitably it will need to happen. Now, the fourth red flag to look out for, which is actually on the complete flip side of everything we talked about before, is bad attention. And this is one that's actually personally led to me getting removed from most of the sales positions that I ended up leaving was because of this precisely. And what I mean by bad attention, it's when someone from the higher ups or above you decides to really bring you under their wing, but maybe it takes the frame or the shape of a harmless mentorship or an apprenticeship because they want to see you do good. They want to see you roll up the ranks of the company. But usually I notice that the bad attention comes not when you start, but when you start to get good. Maybe you've perfected a new way of selling, communicating, setting, closing, overcoming concerns that the company has never seen or heard of before. It flies in the face of everything they've given you during the company onboarding. And maybe they look at your calls in a team meeting and they just can't understand what you're doing. I've experienced this many times where I have an ability to articulate and overcome concerns that just surpass the conscious awareness of many people, most people. And that's why it works so well, is because I'm able to rewrite or rewire someone's mind because they don't know how to rewire themselves to close. But I digress. I've had many moments where managers look at my calls and see the things I do, and something in them switches. It's like a little insecurity begins to flare up. Like everything that they believe to be true doesn't seem to be true. And there's this needless desire to want to control and have a death-like grip over how you communicate and how you operate. And what starts as innocent feedback as to, hey, could you do this better, turns into micromanaging, where every movement and action that you do becomes watched and nothing that you do is enough. And be careful, because they'll rationalize it as they're trying to make you be more effective. They're trying to help you. But really, they're trying to exert their control by forcing you to do something that you know, and maybe they know, is less efficient, but more importantly, makes them feel significant and in control. And that's the most important thing for every business owner. And if you ever see yourself in one of these positions or find yourself, I actually had this recently with one of my mentees. You know who you are. He was an appointment setter at a company that sold training for becoming a business owner on Amazon. And sure enough, I showed him a new way of setting appointments that was very effective. It cut the call time in half. It doubled or tripled his efficiency. It raised his show rate. It's drastically different than what the company had done for years prior. And because of this, it caused so much internal tensions that I just told him he should leave. It resulted in every management meeting being him put on the spotlight with his calls being reviewed and critiqued for why he should do the old process and why the old way of things was doing better. I saw this with another one of my mentees as well in my sales consulting program for the sales gig he was working before he decided to leave. His manager actually pulled him into a group meeting with everybody. Now, he was the top producer, not by a little bit, but by 4 or 5 sales ahead of the entire team he was on of 6 to 7 other salespeople. And because of this, there was attention put on him, and what he was doing that gave him these results was how he was selling and communicating. But the manager hated it with a passion, and every meeting was singling him out and telling him how he needed to change and messaging him in private. And the tension grew to the point that they just decided they were better off parting ways. And this is the power of negative attention. And I've experienced this countless times. And I pity anybody that has to go through an experience similar. But if your experience is the clear sign the company does not want you to evolve, that the company doesn't want to evolve, and that they are trying to punish those that would innovate rather than to reward them. And what kind of company is that? Not one you should work for. The 5th red flag that it's time to quit your job is opportunity. It's important to understand that even the safest job can disappear in just 2 weeks. Recently, Amazon laid off over 18,000 employees and Google another 12,000. These are the giants of their industries. And if layoffs like these show us anything, it shows us that no job is truly secure. And the only real way to protect yourself is to take control of your career and your future. And that brings us to the next sign that it's time to quit your job. And that's when a new opportunity comes your way. You should be able to spot and recognize opportunities that will allow you to learn and grow, even if it means taking a little bit less in the beginning, because it is the skill development, what you will learn by practicing and developing your independent way of operating, that will pay the dividends later and maybe even earn you a higher paying, more secure position. Because the most secure positions go to the most skilled and most talented people, and the most skilled and talented people spent time in the trenches, suffering, learning, but by calculated effort and energy put into little tests where they could practice their skills and see the results that they produced and refine their understanding and do that process again and again and again. And in my personal experience, stability never came from being loyal to one person in the long run, rather than knowing how to be very comfortable in uncomfortable environments. Because I have so much skill that there's nothing that you could throw at me that I couldn't overcome, that I couldn't navigate, that I couldn't find a way through. Imagine I dropped you in the woods with a knife and told you that you need to survive. Would you live or would you die? Well, that answer is solely determined by how much experience you have in those environments and knowing how to get the resources that you need, how to prioritize the actions you need to take, and how to sustain and deal with the uncertainty that comes from being hardened from the elements to know how to survive when there's nothing left but yourself. And this is the one skill that almost every successful entrepreneur inhibits. It's this incredible self-reliance and this incredible courage to spot opportunities and attack them. Do you think the electric vehicle market was developed and had a clean entryway when Elon Musk started? Absolutely not. But he knew how to use the resources that he had, bet on himself, and make it work, and make it happen. And it's this relentless comfort with uncomfort and skill development that allows people to succeed. Do you think he made the profits that he wanted to make in his first couple years of running Tesla? Absolutely not. Why? Because he was figuring it out. He was mastering the landscape. And now he might be a prolific entrepreneur running a multi-billion-dollar company. But this principle is just as true on the micro level for yourself within your career, because I felt it and experienced it personally. If I didn't spend my own money on ads, attacking and taking stabs at things that I didn't know would work or not, and just went through the trial of error of testing different messaging and angles and ideas to find that one thing that would pop, that would put me at a 7x ROAS and create an amount of money that I would never be able to find in traditional employment, well, I would never be where I'm at today, and I would never be making you this video. So if an opportunity presents itself and you are sure that you won't lose all the comfort that you have pursuing this and that you'll be able to approach it and make something of yourself, then I encourage you and I give you the permission to attack it with all of your might. Because leaving your comfort zone and knowing that you can survive, whether things work or don't work, will give you more comfort to know that you'll be able to survive harder times when maybe there's no opportunity, but you know how to make it through. So how about instead of putting all of your effort and energy into somebody else's dream, you use your skills and knowledge to build a life where you can call the shots. One that gives you freedom and growth and stability from not needing to chase. Because stability in a 9-to-5 is an illusion. You could work hard for decades, but at the end of the day, you're just 2 weeks away from being replaced. And leaving the paycheck may seem risky at first, but despite all the red flags in the world, it's actually a way to take control, because nobody can fire you from something you've built yourself. And of course, I'm not saying you need to leave your job tomorrow. I know plenty of people that started businesses working on the evenings or the weekends until they're ready to make the switch completely, like Darren with sales consulting, who got himself to over $13,000 a month before cutting off his sales job to go all in on his new consulting business. Or Tanner, who ran into the negative attention and rode that as long as he could with his company and got his final commission check before bouncing. But the longer you wait, the harder it gets. Every day spent clinging to the illusion of safety from a system that doesn't guarantee you anything is one less day spent building something real, something that nobody can take from you. The choice is yours. Stay where you are and hope for change, or start creating the stability and safety that your parents wanted for you, but on your own terms.